Story 1. I miss the lack of traffic. It was nice being able to actually go at the speed limit and get places on time. The downside was there was much less need to be out driving to enjoy not having traffic. Story 2. I miss the world feeling a bit smaller. We were all in it together. Everyone was hosting balcony concerts or learning to make sourdough. That strange unity was empowering. Story 3. Those initial few days of lockdown felt temporary. I had just won the football squares bet at work and was $800 richer. I met a guy on Tinder who was hilarious and fun. My roommate at the time got sick, so I locked down with this Tinder guy for the first few weeks. I still worked, but during that first week, no one knew what to do. I had just been promoted, and during all that chaos, my training for the new role was neglected for a few weeks. So I logged on to Microsoft Teams and waited for something to happen. It never did. In the meantime, we slept in, watched The Mandalorian, played chess, and ate amazing food since he was a chef. We listened to Ween and had no schedule whatsoever. We drank, were intimate, and watched foxes approach the door wall in his condominium. Then we would open the door and let my dog chase the fox, calling him back to repeat the cycle. We were brand new lovers, so we spent time enjoying the fun things that come with that. We laughed so hard and had someone to ease the uncertainty of everything going on. At one point, we practiced walking on our hands in the middle of a deserted street on a winter morning in one of the busiest ski towns in America because it was totally empty. But it was all haunted by a weird, terrifying panic, like we were in some kind of thriller movie. I don't know how to explain that feeling. It was strange. Writing this made me realize how unique that time in our lives was and that there was a silver lining for me. Andy, if you read this post, thank you for such a great memory in the midst of a once-in-a-lifetime defining event. Story 4. How close I got to friends because we used to check in on each other daily and often during lockdown by phone or texting. Now everyone is busy living their lives, working or traveling, and I am lucky if I get a text back the same week that I have messaged. Story 5. I miss when people kept their distance and were not all up in my business at the ATM or a market. Story 6. Waking up every morning, joining the online university lecture, and then not paying any attention but instead playing the recently released Animal Crossing New Horizons on my Nintendo Switch and eating cereal. It was my daily ritual and so nice, to be honest. Also, the dramatic feeling that something big was actually happening out there, if it makes any sense. Sure, it was difficult at times, but at least life was not boring. Story 7. I was the most stressed out I have ever been in my life just prior to COVID-19. Work, family, the speed of life was absolutely overwhelming me and it just all stopped. I had time, space, I could breathe. A massive weight disappeared from my shoulders overnight. Traffic was light, the crowds thinned out. That year my country had the best spring and summer weather in a decade. I was also very lucky in that I did not lose anyone and was deemed an essential worker. COVID-19 caused me no personal issues whatsoever. And now, things have slowly devolved back into the rat race. I am absolutely aware of and thankful for my fortunate position during that time and would never wish it again just for my personal benefit. Story 8. Empty roads. The worst part of my workday is dealing with heavy traffic and rude drivers on my daily commute. Story 9. Free time is the period to stay with family for months without the need to work for money. Story 10. Staying home with my mother and playing cards every afternoon. Like clockwork, we would play cards around 2 every day. I really missed that quality time with her. Story 11. Not being frowned upon when declining an invitation to gatherings. Story 12. I'm pretty introverted and I actually really liked all the coronavirus shutdowns. It gave me time to pursue hobbies and passions. I spent my days and nights cooking a ton of amazing Thai food. I got really into baking sourdough and maintaining my own starter, building models, playing video games, and sleeping better than I have in forever. Story 13. Using MDMA with my wife and making out all night. I mean, we still do that, but there was something about being locked away in our house and just being affectionate while everyone else seemed to lose their minds. Story 14. Not a thing. I work in healthcare, so I still had to work. I had to take the bus back and forth to work. The bus company marked off every other seat to maintain distance between people, But they also cut the number of buses running, so buses were still crowded. On one of the buses, the driver flipped all the front seats up and would not let anyone sit there, even though they were about 6 feet from him and he was enclosed with plexiglass and had fresh air coming in through his window. Story 15. Being forced to eat healthy, I went 7 months without ordering takeout. Having the luxury of time also made it possible to experiment in the kitchen. Story 16. My husband is home instead of traveling for work. Just 4 more years until he retires. Story 17. I had COVID-19 just a week ago. It is still present. But before COVID-19, I missed the calmness of the world. Story 18. I got into trading cryptocurrency at that time. It was when Dogecoin reached 0.74 United States dollars, so I saw significant growth within my first month. It was a slippery slope. Story 19. People standing too far back from me in public. If you can see my phone screen, you are too close. Please step back. Story 20. Zero pressure to socialize or see anyone apart from my husband. Zero fear of missing out. I am 40 and still do not quite know if I enjoy socializing or just do it to tick a box that says I am normal, and for the well-documented health benefits of having human connections, that is, for selfish reasons rather than because I necessarily enjoy the company of the people involved. I certainly felt the most mentally healthy that I have ever been during the lockdowns. Story 21. Having enough money. Not only could I afford to immediately pay a bill when it was due, I had abundant groceries and enough time to sprout and grow 12 cannabis plants and tend to them until full harvest. There is nothing like consuming cannabis you cultivated yourself, and it lasted me through all of 2021. But mainly having money in my checking account before getting paid again. Story 22. Clean, absolutely clear air in Los Angeles. I have lived here for over 30 years and have never seen it quite like that before. There was no haze at all, just beautiful mountains all around. Without crowded freeways, the city looked glorious. Story 23. No pressure during the holidays. It was really nice to have a valid reason to stay home and enjoy our little family, make delicious food, watch movies, and just be together without any pretense or expectations. It was also nice not to deal with extended family drama. Story 24. I missed the walk I took on Good Friday during the lockdown. I went almost half an hour without seeing a car on a normally busy street. For half an hour, I was the last man standing. Story 25. Although it became tedious at times, the time I spent sitting, reading, and starting a brand new hobby is something I will probably never get to do again. Story 26. I live close to a highway and 2 airports. I miss the quiet in my backyard. Story 27. Hardly any traffic and clear, smog-free skies. It was amazing. Story 28. Silence and being alone, as an introvert, was heaven on earth. Story 29. I did not have any social life before the lockdown and would get really upset knowing people were out and about having fun with friends. During coronavirus disease, I felt good that everyone was at home like me. Story 30. Silence allows you to start hearing nature again, even in a city. Story 31. Always having a valid excuse to stay in. I can stay home now, but it is harder to say no, and there is unspoken pressure to be out. Story 32. Not having to do anything with filthy, nasty, and pestilent humans. Story 33. Empty streets, empty beaches, no litter, no smokers, no loud intoxicated people on the streets. Story 34. Not having to worry about organizing family holiday gatherings. During coronavirus disease 2019, we just relaxed at home on Thanksgiving and Christmas, not worrying about in-laws, traveling, or offending someone because we did not make them the priority. We just sat around as a small family and enjoyed the moment. It was blissful. The first mention of holiday plans came up this week, and my wife said afterward, "Remember how peaceful the holidays were during lockdown?" She was absolutely right. Story 35. Lack of traffic on the road. It was legitimately quiet outside in the city since everyone was staying at home. Story 36. Getting up knowing I would get to see my wife and children every day, experience their day along with them, and end the day together. My children are young, so being able to spend those early months before going back to 50 to 60 hours a week and at least one day on the weekend was very special. Story 37. I was a teacher at the time. Unlike many teachers, as a music teacher, I basically had nothing to do for the last part of the school year. Felt like a long holiday. The downside was that I was genuinely afraid to go out and get groceries and other essentials. However, it was great not having to return to school that year. I hated teaching, so it was such a relief when the schools closed. Story 38. Not being obligated to make plans every weekend. Not everyone was keen on large gatherings. You could easily decline an invitation or keep get-togethers limited. Story 39. The way we were heroes working from home, keeping offices running during lockdown, and now when we say it makes us happier and there is clear evidence that productivity did not drop from working at home, we are just lazy and unwilling to work, wanting to continue. Story 40. Having house party sessions with my friends who all live in different cities and countries until 5 a.m. All of us were absolutely intoxicated. I felt closer to them than I have in ages. Story 41. I miss spending the whole day at home with my husband, just the two of us. Story 42. Not feeling like I have to go out all the time, perfectly fine with staying in. People frown upon that, though. Story 43. I miss only ever having to do the top half of my makeup because anything under the mask did not matter. Also, making faces at people at work under my mask. I miss that. Story 44. Getting paid to sit around and do nothing felt pretty good. Story 45. The absolute freedom and leisure time. 18 months with my wife alone was like an endless honeymoon. Story 46. No people on the street staring at their phones when I am riding my bicycle to the supermarket. The only weekly half hour I leave the house. Story 47. Not many people were on the streets. There was no pressure to shake hands or touch others. The social distancing was excellent. No one bumped into you. Story 48. Bars and pubs are closed. This information is from a bartender and manager. Story 49. No pressure to come up with something all the time. I like to do fun activities, but it has to be on my terms. Some time ago, before the coronavirus pandemic, people rolled their eyes if you even thought about spending a Saturday night at home. The attitude has changed because people now understand that it is quite nice from time to time. And yes, working from home, I have the opportunity to do it today, but not every day without some negative reactions. Story 50. Fewer people on public transportation. I was an essential worker and had no time off, but I never had to deal with crowded transport. Story 51. I miss my old college roommates and living with them. We truly made COVID-19 better for each other. And even though we have moved away and have careers, we still keep in touch. I also miss my best friend from there and hanging out almost every day. Story 52. My friends and I all played games together online again like it was 15 to 20 years ago. Then things went back to normal and we stopped playing games together again. Story 53. In the beginning, before masks, vaccines, and testing were widely available, even having a cough was reason enough to immediately stay home since I worked with people with health issues. Until we had steady supplies of masks and testing improved, my persistent cough between September and June kept me on the sidelines for a long time. Usually, it would not have been a problem, but I could not tell if I had the illness or not. Staying at home fully paid for the majority of almost 4 months while having normal health was quite nice. Story 54. The lack of loneliness was because we were all experiencing the same frightening situation. Story 55. I miss the times I normally wouldn't because of embarrassment, but during lockdown, I really enjoyed shaving my head bald for absolutely no reason other than I felt like it. Story 56. That everyone dear to me was 20 feet away or less, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I knew it was an anomaly that was probably never going to happen again and enjoyed it at the time. Story 57. The wild economy. I made a significant amount of money buying and selling sports cards. It eventually declined, and I exited the market. Story 58. The launch of classic World of Warcraft and playing all day during work hours for days nonstop. Story 59. My job paid me full-time for working part-time to reduce the number of people in the building and prevent the spread of the virus. Story 60. My boyfriend and I got together right before the lockdown. We both worked retail at the same company but different stores and lived 5 minutes away from each other. So we decided it was safe to be in each other's bubble. We had so much quality one-on-one time to just enjoy each other and be in that little love bubble because we literally could not do anything else. Story 61. The overall sense of communities coming together. Here in the United Kingdom, everyone on the street left their houses at 7:30 p.m. every Thursday to clap with appreciation for National Health Service workers. This was followed by socially distanced catch-ups of news and gossip before venturing back inside. Advertisements in supermarkets showed people offering to run errands for those self-isolating. Families, friends, and neighbors checked in on one another more than they normally would. Here in Scotland, small takeaway businesses operated food banks and delivered essentials to community members. People volunteered their time to run kids' clubs for children of key workers. Now we are back to our normal lives with work and are less likely to check in on one another because COVID-19 is as common as the cold now. Story 62. Spending every day with a friend thrifting, talking, standing in line at the thrift store, and being excited about what we would find. Story 63. Not spending any money for weeks at a time was amazing. We only spent on food shopping for about a month. The savings were significant during lockdown. Story 64. Using substances at home with a small group of people. Story 65. Yes. I missed the silence and empty roads. Then, the apprehension and social awkwardness after practicing social distancing for so long. That was funny to watch. Story 66. I was fortunate to work from home. I bought a camper the year before the coronavirus pandemic, and my wife gave birth to our first child, so we basically lived at campgrounds for 2 years while I worked remotely. It was amazing, and I missed that time. Story 67. For about 3 months, I was minimally employed. I wrote, recorded, edited, and published a song every month. I enjoyed that. I have not really worked on it since. I sold most of my gear too. Story 68. I missed the 6-foot rule. Get away from me. Why do you have to be so close when I am checking out at the store? Are you going to pay for my stuff? No? Then back up. Story 69. The nostalgic memories of online schooling and having plenty of free time to do whatever you wanted. Story 70. The 6-foot lines in the stores. I was spoiled by the amount of personal space. Story 71. Working from home. Our office returned to full-time in-office work after 13 months. No one acknowledged that our department flourished under working from home, and now we struggle due to the constant interruptions of office life. Story 72. Having little to no responsibility, I was 12 when it started. My friends and I were playing Minecraft while the teachers talked in the background. Simpler times. Story 73. Morning walks. With the kids in virtual school and the adults working from home, we would get up at 5 in the morning and go for a long, meandering walk every weekday. We would get back home by 7, have some breakfast, and then go to work or school by 8. It was nice to wander through different neighborhoods, see the sun come up, and get a lot of exercise without feeling rushed, almost every day. Story 74. Walking around Manhattan for the first time, I enjoyed exploring the borough. Story 75. The dead silence. No airplanes, helicopters, or trucks honking. I assume you mean the lockdown. Coronavirus disease 2019 is still out there. Story 76. I had a couple of close friends, and during that time we would just get together and hang out. Play music, listen to music, watch Altered Carbon, play video games, enjoy some experiences, smoke some weed, mostly just live. And we did it together. After the restrictions were lifted, we did a lot less of that as we all got back to our own lives and obligations. But for a few months, all we had was each other, and it was amazing. Story 77. Being off work and still getting paid was great. I was off for 2 months and received half pay. Felt like a taste of early retirement. Story 78. Honestly, not much has changed for us here. Maybe the traffic was lighter. Story 79. I miss the time spent as a family together, especially now that my older children are off to university. Story 80. Being the only person allowed to go into the office, Parking was great and traffic was non-existent. I could literally do nothing all day but would be commended for going in every day like a hero. I had to ship a lot of items to people working from home, but I did not mind because then I could rest in the mailroom. Story 81. I am a nurse. No visitors are allowed in the hospital. No family members at the bedside. Pure bliss. Story 82. Being able to get on the highway, set the cruise control, and not have to turn it off until my exit. There are too many cars on the road now. Story 83. My job gave us $30 extra a day for being essential workers. Story 84. The office stayed open in Soho, Manhattan. All rules were suspended. For 3 weeks, I drove in and parked right in front. Felt so good. Story 85. I continued to commute to work during the coronavirus pandemic, but I was one of the only ones there. I missed the quiet. Story 86. I liked how something was different. My world is so routine. There was something interesting about being in a shakeup. We joined live virtual trivia on Fridays and would share a bottle of wine. Story 87. Nobody was pulled over for speeding, either because the police did not want to get close to you or because they knew there were not enough people on the highway for speeding to be dangerous. Story 88. The excitement I felt from playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was incredible. I had just started playing video games after a 20-year break, so everything about that game was amazing, even features that I now realize are quite standard. Story 89. For a little while, day drinking after being let go. Story 90. Making easy money trading special purpose acquisition companies. That was fun. The fresh air and quiet from low traffic. Story 91. Coming home from work and all my furlough friends on Call of Duty Warzone. Story 92. Empty roads and highways were amazing. I could get to work in half the time, and it felt less stressful. Although I still don't understand why solo drivers wear a mask in their own car. Story 93. It really did feel like the world. The sane and kind parts of the world anyway. Joined theoretical hands and wished peace, health, and compassion upon each other during that time. I missed that feeling. Jobs, decent places anyway, tried to work out better plans for handling physical and mental health. Other places put out signs, wishing passersby well. We made an effort to treat essential workers kindly. We tried to be better to disabled and elderly folks. Of course, there were those who made it about themselves and did not want to do any of the above, but in my experience, the more compassionate people were loudest, and that meant a lot to me during that time. Story 94. The fleeting hope that it could all turn into Station 11, and entertaining the idea of joining a wandering troupe of actors and musicians if I ended up surviving. Story 95. During coronavirus disease, when everyone was stuck at home, I finally had the chance to watch all the shows I had been meaning to without interruptions. My partner and I binge-watched Naruto Shippuden from start to finish, skipping the filler episodes, which we really enjoyed. I also discovered that I am a pretty decent baker and experimented with different desserts. I shared them with friends, hoping to lift their spirits during such an uncertain time. We even had group cooking sessions on a video call platform, where we all cooked pasta together. It was so much fun. We also celebrated birthdays on video calls, and I feel like people made more of an effort to stay connected virtually during coronavirus disease. Now that life has returned to normal, I rarely do any of these things anymore. I just cannot seem to find the time. Story 96. Earning more money from unemployment benefits than from working overtime in an automobile manufacturing plant. Story 97. Lack of traffic. Cheaper petrol. Cool cars were being sold cheaper. I was too broke to benefit from that, but I enjoyed scrolling and dreaming all the same. Drinking until blackout while playing Borderlands 2 on cooperative mode with a friend. I do not drink nearly that much anymore. I do not really enjoy it these days, and it makes me feel sick for days after. Story 98. As a medical worker, I miss the days when the hospital was closed to families. Now, most are good, but those that are terrible and treat us like wait staff are the worst. Story 99. My own personal 2-meter barrier from people spitting on me when they speak, and no hugging. Story 100. My friends and I would literally talk 24/7, stay up all hours of the night video chatting, and it was the best time. Story 101. Cooking. I only had a month off, but I had a wonderful time preparing 3 meals a day for the family. Story 102. Less traffic and fewer people clogging up space in stores, restaurants, and entertainment venues. Story 103. I miss the celebrities and wealthy people posting online videos from their fully staffed 32-room mansions, telling me how we are all in this situation together. Story 104. The excuse to avoid interacting with some people, including certain family members. I also enjoyed not having random salespeople coming into the office and the handshaking. I have always hated shaking hands. I don't know where those hands have been. Story 105. Lack of traffic. Capacity limits in many places. Permanent work from home. Okay, I still do, but many people are back in the office and wish they did not have to. Not expected to be anywhere. Some of the extra government assistance. Company covered sick time if you became ill, at least in my case. Story 106. I miss the peaceful thought that tomorrow there is no school or assignment waiting. Story 107. Golf. I was able to play 3 times a week while working from home. Story 108. I was an academic scientific researcher at the time on a fixed-term contract and couldn't conduct my work. I was especially vulnerable, so I stayed inside longer. COVID-19 reduced the time available for my funding, and I had significantly less time to publish papers. My previously excellent research record suffered and never recovered. Because I depended on it to get my next job, I did not secure another research position. Meanwhile, I was living in a terrible flat, below a would-be techno DJ and above a refugee woman who was involved in some sort of illegal immigration activity. She had a rotation of new people coming and going at all hours, partying and playing music sporadically. At times, there were as many as 15 people in the small 2-bedroom flat, which she was receiving rent-free, funded by the council. I was threatened multiple times when I asked them to behave. The would-be DJ was more reasonable, but hearing thumping bass from midnight to 3 a.m., when his live stream was running, was intolerable. The building had a broken door that no one would fix due to COVID-19 restrictions. This meant a homeless man was sleeping and urinating in the hallway. We tolerated it because he seemed harmless, until he attacked our elderly neighbor, who tripped over him one morning while leaving. While everyone around me was not working due to receiving free COVID-19 furlough money, I tried to work in my bedroom but did not accomplish much. I did not sleep well and hated everything, but I am glad everyone else had a good time. Story 109. Halfway through the workday afternoon, I bring the children to the elevator lobby to blow bubbles into the sky. Immediately after work, I start the Xbox Kinect so we can get some exercise in front of the television. Story 110. I hated everything about it except that my husband was receiving large bonuses, and there were also some amazing travel deals. Story 111. No traffic at all, neither on the freeway nor on the streets. Overall, COVID-19 was very difficult. Story 112. I was in my first year of college when the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic began, so I miss having little to no work to do and staying up to very late hours playing Call of Duty. Story 113. Having time to explore new hobbies is important. Life has become too busy again, and there is no space for it on my schedule. Story 114. I miss the only coworker breaking my concentration with talking being my dog. Story 115. I remember hearing a news story about how much happier marine life, such as whales, seem to be with the reduced noise from maritime traffic. It makes me sad that the noise is back in full force. Story 116. My whole family was under the same roof for a long period of time. That was my best birthday as well, the second day of lockdown. I live alone now and visit my parents from time to time. My siblings have their own places as well, but back then, it felt nice just having them around and hanging out, especially my dad, who was always away for work and whom I only really saw on weekends. Story 117. Nothing. My house burned down and I lost everything. I had to pay twice as much for a new, smaller house than what we previously had. Story 118. Being able to do schoolwork at home. I was on my last spring and summer term when the lockdown began. Story 119. At home with my family. When coronavirus disease hit, my uncle and aunt were visiting from another state. My brother was having a semester break from Japan. He was a Japanese university student at that time. When coronavirus disease hit, my government started a restricted movement order where no one was allowed to leave their house for 2 weeks. It continued due to severe outbreaks and extended from 2 weeks to almost 3 months. Since all of them were stuck in our house, they stayed for 3 months. We had a great time watching movies and eating together every day. I miss it a lot. Story 120. Petrol was under $1 per liter Australian dollars for the first time in perhaps a decade. Nowadays it gets up to $2.30 per liter. Story 121. Having to slow down and not have so many obligations. I know coronavirus disease was a horrible time for a lot of people, but we lived our best lives for a year. I would take the slowdown again without the disease and death. Story 122. Fuel prices, personal space, limited person-to-person interactions, interest rates. Story 123. I kind of miss just being able to be home when I was not working. Sadly, I was considered essential. Story 124. People struggled during COVID-19. COVID-19 was very difficult for me and my family. I have 4 children who all have different special needs, and it was extremely challenging with school and doctors. We could not even do anything as a family to get out of the house. I strongly dislike COVID-19 and all the difficulties associated with it. Story 125. The close circle of friends who all hung out together because that was all there was to do. Once coronavirus disease 2019 was over, we all went back to our sports athlete-dominated world. Those 6 months were a precious time we will never get back. Story 126. I miss Reddit Live, where I could watch people talking about their hobbies, paint along with someone, or watch them play live music. It was really cool to interact like that. Story 127. Not having to give out samples at my job. I work at a delicatessen that lets you try anything in the store. People come in just to eat samples and leave. Story 128. My full-time salary job decided to be cheap and put everyone on part-time unemployment, sending all of us to work from home. That meant we received unemployment benefits, so I was getting my salary plus $900 per week and state unemployment to work 50% of the time, while playing Animal Crossing on my couch and focusing on my health. I had so much free time to think about my goals and what I wanted out of life. I lost 80 pounds, paid off credit card debt, and became nearly fluent in Spanish. Also, it felt acceptable to not have someone stand right behind me in line at the grocery store. I missed that level of personal space. Story 129. Most of life's pressures were gone. My employer was unsure how the pandemic would affect us, like most businesses, no doubt. So, in an effort to protect employees, most of the company went from working 40 hours per week over 5 days to 25 hours per week over 4 days. The reduced income did not matter much because you could not go anywhere to spend money anyway. Story 130. 100% work from home. Almost no driving. Having all that extra time to cook, go for a walk, and so on. Story 131. The slow pace and realizing you can still accomplish a full day's work without working a full day. Story 132. Staying home and watching Tiger King. I also miss my old job. I had an awesome office job that I took for granted but then was laid off. Story 133. The masks, nothing being open, the people who refused to wear masks exposing everyone they came in contact with, the fear, your favorite restaurant closing and never reopening, not being able to visit your brand new granddaughter, watching your friends and loved ones dying a horrible death. What was not to love? Story 134. Having distance classes and being able to study at home is very nice. Story 135. The time and space to explore things I would not have otherwise. The shared experience of making sourdough is something of a joke now, but I find it amazing that so many people picked it up simply because they had time to try. For me, I discovered that given ample time, I would rather be outside in my garden instead of inside working a dead-end office job. As a result, I went back to school and started my own fine gardening and design business. Story 136. The amount of time spent with my daughter is important. I am divorced with shared custody, but our weekdays are spent at sports. During the COVID-19 pandemic, she would join me for work and school activities and do her own things as well. We would socialize the whole time. We joke that she has an honorary degree in counseling due to the time she spent with me during my lessons. She has even used some of the techniques. She is 7 years old and was 3 or 4 during COVID-19. How some of those things stuck blows my mind. Story 137. Going to the Louvre and standing before the Mona Lisa alone. The same applies to Venice, the Palace of Versailles, and many of the top tourist attractions in Italy. Story 138. Getting paid more than twice what I was making at my minimum wage job while sitting at home playing Animal Crossing all day. Story 139. I miss COVID-19 because I had a legitimate reason to avoid my mother-in-law. Story 140. This local restaurant prepared dinners for 2 and sold them at a gas station when everything shut down. The food was very good and affordable. I wish they still did that. Story 141. Being with my family, wife and sons, every day. While I was trapped at home and in the neighborhood because I have multiple sclerosis and am immunocompromised, I got to spend quality time in a full house with those I love the most. It got claustrophobic at times, but I really missed it when it was gone. Story 142. 26-year-old female from Canada. 1. Lack of traffic. I don't drive, but I meant fewer people in stores so I could shop peacefully without worrying if the aisle is crowded or if I am blocking someone's view. 2. Remote jobs. 3. This one is controversial, but I miss wearing the mask the most. I suffer from social anxiety and excessive hair growth from my polycystic ovary syndrome, especially on my chin. When I covered my face, I felt more confident and less self-conscious. I did not have to pluck chin hairs every day. Story 143. This was very early in the COVID-19 pandemic with a complete lack of crime. Everyone was so afraid of everyone else that I used to leave my bedroom window open at night and feel completely secure that no one would come in. I am facing the front street. I could walk out at night and have absolutely no problems with anyone at all. Story 144. Wine and beer ninja. I'm pretty sure this happened everywhere and wasn't just limited to my region. Who else remembers when people would sneak up, leave a gift of alcohol at a friend, neighbor, or stranger's front door, ring the bell, and then run away? People started putting on costumes, adding flair to the delivery, posting hilarious blooper videos, and everyone paid it forward. Ninja gifting created a bond at the start of the lockdown. Story 145. All of my friends were playing video games again. It felt like the old days when you would see your friends list all online and playing games. Story 146. Disneyland. When they first reopened, there was no Lightning Lane or Genie Plus system. Parks were not busy at all. It was when I started to enjoy Disney again, but now it is just not worth it anymore. The planning required makes it not fun, and it is cheaper to fly to Tokyo. Story 147. Everything at my job stopped, and nothing bad happened as a result. It made me realize that we are busy for the sake of being busy. Story 148. People stay home from work when they have a cold. It is slowly becoming acceptable again to show up unwell. Story 149. The enhanced unemployment benefits allowed me to earn more without working than I did while employed. I was exercising and in the best shape I had been in a decade. Story 150. Family. Story 151. People remember that adults can have hobbies that do not involve drinking or going out, such as puzzles and building with Lego bricks. Story 152. 1. No traffic. My commute was very easy. 2. People do not expect me to go out with them all the time. Story 153. Being able to settle in and stay at home without feeling uncomfortable about it. Story 154. Elite gaming with friends every night. Everyone stayed home, was online, and ready to play games. Story 155. Lack of traffic. Personal space. Delivery services. Reading. Story 156. Types of people being integrated into video games and internet culture who usually would not be. Story 157. Everyone being home online made being outside better. Less overall pollution and movement was just easier. Story 158. Not having to go to any parties or gatherings. No holiday pressure with the family coming over. Just my husband and 3 boys. Easy, enjoyable, and simple. My sons have all recently moved out. I will forever enjoy that time together. Having said that, we were very lucky no one we knew or loved was lost to coronavirus disease. My heart goes out to those who passed and were not as fortunate. Story 159. It was awesome having about 620-something young adults living with us parents and significant others. We genuinely loved each other and had a terrific time together. All of us were on the same page about exposure, and we were very careful not to compromise ourselves outside, so we knew we were all safe together. Importantly, safe for us did not mean avoiding getting sick ourselves, but avoiding spreading illness to others who could infect vulnerable people. We called it our island, and had a blast playing games, communicating, watching series, connecting with relatives, enjoying Jackbox TV as a group, and spending time together. It was a great experience. Towards the end, after many months, if not over a year, things got a bit looser. If someone did something that might infect the group, we would have a meeting, a council, and could vote someone off the island if we felt it was necessary. A couple of people got the boot, which they agreed was the right decision. I personally loved the whole lockdown period. It really took the stress of everyday life out of the air. What replaced it was simplicity and companionship. What a great time to be alive. Story 160. I miss being on Discord with my friends every night, playing Werewolf, Among Us, or just watching a movie. What a time. Story 161. I miss almost no stores being open and keeping all that extra cash in my pocket. I know it is a problem of my own making, but you put a chocolate cake in front of me and I am going to devour that too. I am a flawed man. Story 162. Empty lanes with no traffic allowed me to walk safely down the middle and hear the birds in the hedges. Story 163. Nothing. I had a job offer after university that was withdrawn. I lost a year of my career that I will never get back. I almost had enough money to buy a home and start my life at pre-COVID prices before the market exploded and left me behind. Now I am in a difficult situation, and it will be close to 2030 before I can buy the first home I want. I strongly dislike that period of time. Story 164. Being able to stay home without people calling me lazy or shaming me for not getting things done. Story 165. Social distancing. Not everyone followed the rules, but it was genuinely nice not having to worry about someone literally breathing down your neck while you were queuing for the cash register. Story 166. 1. People leaving me alone. 2. Not having to scroll through a list of excuses to avoid doing or attending something. You had one excuse and it worked without fail. No thought involved. Story 167. The quiet. People minding their own business. The peace and quiet is what I miss the most. Story 168. I missed the senior hours at some stores. Some stores in my area implemented senior hours when only people aged 60 and older could shop. It was great. Story 169. Lack of traffic was strange, but I really enjoyed it. I was fortunate to still have a job, but I would have liked to experience not doing anything for a few months. Story 170. Gaming with friends in Verdansk WZ1 during COVID was special. Story 171. I lived in a high-rise building, and an older gentleman would bring out his karaoke machine at 3 p.m. and sing the standards. He was not Frank Sinatra, but he had an okay voice. People would hang on their balconies, applaud, and enjoy it. Story 172. I received extra money from the government and got a job very quickly since it was for a hospital. There were also many discounts, deals, and perks that seemed common among companies at that time. Story 173. Quality time with family and friends, nature and outdoor adventures, the slower pace of life, home-cooked meals, virtual gatherings and events, community spirit. Story 174. Those group video calls. Despite the physical distance, I was hanging out with various groups of friends almost daily. Story 175. The job I had was very easy. I worked at Walmart as the person who screened employees for COVID-19 before they clocked in. That was all I did. I just sat at a table with a thermometer and took temperatures as people came in to work. In between taking temperatures, I would read a book, draw, or play on my phone. It was nice to get paid for doing basically nothing all day. Story 176. I miss the emerging awareness among the general population that a massively disruptive event can come out of nowhere, and that it may be a good idea to have supplies on hand to cover the eventuality. It seems most people have forgotten, but I hope more people are prepared to handle a sudden, hugely disruptive event than before. Story 177. Riding my bicycle through the empty streets of San Francisco. Story 178. Spending the day with my grandmother. COVID-19 was difficult, but she made it through the worst times without a problem, only to be affected when the situation was improving. Story 179. I hated every part of it except that I got to know my neighbors a little better. My wife and I took frequent walks up and down the road and visited with the neighbors. It was nice, but pandemics are terrible. Story 180. My gym had limited capacity and was available by reservation only. It was not empty, but there was always much less waiting time to use equipment, making it less stressful. Story 181. My family all got together via Zoom on Sundays and we had a quiz. My family is in the United Kingdom and I am in New York. They were on lockdown for over a year, and I was home for 6 months. I missed the time we had, even if it was on Zoom. We do not see each other very often. Story 182. Romanticizing my life more. I listen to more cheerful music than I do now. Story 183. The quiet. No horn honking or sirens. No crazy people screaming in the streets. It was so pleasant. Story 184. I sometimes get fear of missing out. During the pandemic, it was comforting to know we were all not doing much. Story 185. Nothing. I was an in-person worker doing my job with coronavirus disease restrictions. It was a horrible, stressful time. I spent some time wearing a mask yesterday because I was around a group of immunocompromised people, and it gave me flashbacks. Story 186. I miss having a good excuse not to see anyone or let anyone into my house. Story 187. Traffic. I was deemed essential since we were part of the supply chain for multi-unit housing. Working in Boston was easy, with very little traffic on Interstate 128, Interstate 495, Interstate 90, and surface streets at any time of day. Story 188. No fear of missing out. Everyone was excited to play Animal Crossing, but it was the only game we had. I played it with all my friends, even some of my former partners. Now, I would not be able to find anyone to play with me. Story 189. I miss being allowed to just stay home without excuses, not being obliged to do certain things. Also, my family and I seemed closer. I miss not being obliged to see my in-laws as often. They are decent people and I like my mother-in-law a lot. However, my brother-in-law can be overwhelming, and my family, including the kids, are always walking on eggshells around him. Story 190. I miss the unemployment checks. It was nice to have some basic universal basic income and not have to work for a while. It also got me on Medicaid for a few years, long enough to discover and treat my cancer. Without it, I would be either homeless or dead at this point. Story 191. I work in the emergency room as a nurse. This may sound a little harsh, but we had a no-visitor policy unless it was under extreme circumstances, such as when it was expected that the patient might die or if the patient was a minor. It was much easier to work. Family members are mostly not helpful. I wish we could return to that policy. Story 192. Having time to bake. Everything seems so rushed and urgent now. Story 193. Getting paid for being sick. Being left alone. The emptiness everywhere. Slow life and people respecting your space. Story 194. Affordable hotels. Tourist attractions with no crowds, low-cost flights. Story 195. I was an essential worker who lives on the south side and works on the north side. It was fantastic to have the highway practically empty with no construction either. Story 196. We used to get takeout and eat it on benches in various parks. Story 197. 6 feet apart in lines and stimulus checks. Also, how little traffic there was. Story 198. I am a registered nurse. I missed the limited visitation in the hospital, all my patients being on ventilators, and the significant shift bonuses. Story 199. I do not miss anything about that unpleasant time. I did not have fun, frankly. Story 200. Not having to commute, I accomplished so much with the extra 2 hours. Story 201. I miss the freedom of binge-watching shows on Netflix. It does not feel the same now. Story 202. I did not do anything different during the coronavirus pandemic. I am always at my house anyway. Story 203. The amount of things I enjoyed during coronavirus disease 2019 does not compare to what I miss from before coronavirus disease 2019. There is nothing that I would do twice about coronavirus disease 2019 if I could just have my pre-coronavirus disease 2019 back. Story 204. The feeling of physiological superiority when I caught it early in June 2020 had no symptoms and during the months that followed as the cases increased. Story 205. People caring about covering their coughs and avoiding others when they are sick. Story 206. I was asked to deliver meals for the school district where I still work. I was teamed up with a fellow coworker, and we became good friends. He would drive and I would hand out the meals. We had many fascinating discussions. Without this experience, we would not be the friends we are today. Story 207. Lack of fear of missing out. No one was doing much of anything, so there was nothing to miss. Story 208. It was illegal to stand next to my desk and talk to me. You had to be 6 feet away. I sure do miss that. Story 209. Nobody was on the roads, the gas prices were high, and there was a general quiet. I saw foxes, deer, and small animals by the pond near the apartment I stayed in during that time. I could watch them from my balcony. I lived in Indianapolis, so seeing a deer that far into town was unusual. Story 210. As an essential worker, the only thing I miss is not having to worry about food in my teeth or bad breath while wearing a mask. Story 211. Being a self-employed commercial photographer, now retired, I often traveled by car. The low cost of fuel, hotel rooms, and lack of traffic, heck, just the lack of people, was absolutely golden. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.